Hey everybody, real quick video here in the midst of my break from YouTube. I wanted to make a clarification. After that, I wanted to continue to sort of establish a framework for discussion between theists and atheists, more importantly new atheists. Okay, like Robert Wright said, I don't have a problem with the atheism, it's the new part. Okay, so the clarification has to do with a video I recently made where I proclaimed myself an agnostic, and I don't want to back off of that, but I do want to clarify it a bit. What prompted me to think in these terms is that I got a text response, Sobel, in the comments section. I think it was the video where I proclaimed myself an agnostic, actually, where someone said that the aliens at Roswell have more going for them than gods because the aliens are at least in theory possible. And so that struck me as strange because I don't find gods to be impossible, which is why I'm an agnostic, okay? But then it occurred to me that I suppose there are some conceptions of God that I find impossible, okay? And that's the God of the sort of Abrahamic Orthodox tradition, so Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, that says that there is a being that created the universe that is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. So all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. Okay? So on our common conception of morality, that we have the true and correct understanding of what's right and wrong, sort of universally right and wrong, I think this God is impossible, okay? Literally impossible. So, because if a God could do anything, because it had unlimited power and knew everything, and was all loving, then why are we seeing all this horrible suffering in the world? We see it, we experience it, many of us, okay? A lot of really bad things happen. Life is not easy. It's not always good even, okay? So it could be hard and good all the time. It's not, sometimes it's just plain bad, all right? So if someone wants to say, well, yeah, but it has to be that way, okay? There was no other way to do it, then I think we have to think hard about what we mean by all-powerful, right? Because if a being is all-powerful, then the being wouldn't be limited such that the only way to create, or the only way to create other beings that could experience beauty, then the only way to do that was that so much of our existence would be horrible, right? So the God with the three O's, as it's sometimes called, either sort of makes a mockery of our common understanding of morality, or this God is just impossible. And so on that particular conception of God, I'm resolutely atheist. Now suppose on any conception of God, I'm atheist in one sort of trivial understanding of what the word means. Okay, holding no gods. But I want to say that there's a colloquial sense of the word that sort of should mean more to us. And that's that an atheist is a person who doesn't consider the question of God to be interesting or motivated intellectually at all. All right, even while the existence of God can't be disproven, like a celestial teapot, as someone corrected me in a recent video. So, so I'm resolutely atheist. I don't think the God, which is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving, is worth spending a lot of time entertaining intellectually. I don't think that God is worth expending a lot of intellectual resources to save, when the option, the much more attractive option of either rejecting that God altogether and just leaving the issue alone, or tweaking the God a little bit, is so much more plausible and motivated. Okay, so my understanding is that the official position of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is that God is not technically omnipotent. And that's the only one of the traditional qualities that they sort of part with. Now, if you ask me if a being could create the whole universe, I'm impressed, all right? I don't need you to go on from that and prevent every bad thing from happening. That display of power is impressive enough to me, okay, to say, okay, yeah, that's God-like, that's a God, okay? So I don't think that all three characteristics in one being is a necessary condition of a creator God. If there were a creator God who was not technically omnipotent, it would still count as a God and would still sort of disprove atheism, okay? Now on this tweaked God, I'm an agnostic. Okay, so just getting down into the nitty gritty of exactly what I mean by my position that I'm an agnostic. Now, I think I've given enough coverage to that. I think I've said what I wanted to say on that. So the next thing is that in terms of the framework or the sort of ethos that we should share as we argue about this topic, is that I want to sort of shine the light on the ground ahead of us and say, here's some holes in the ground we need to step around. Okay, so sometimes in conversations like these, people get hung up on consequences. So, for example, if a new atheist or sort of an admirer can no longer defend sort of a line of argument that one of the four horsemen, probably Daniel Dennett's the least likely culprit, but one of the other four horsemen is embarking upon, sometimes they'll say, well, I support the new atheist movement because I want to make the world a safer place for atheists. And atheism is now a much more sort of socially respectable position thanks to the efforts of people like Richard Dawkins, right? Maybe true, okay? And that's probably a good thing, okay? But the consequences don't matter, right? We're doing sort of a quasi-academic evaluation of arguments, right? I hope so. Okay, so maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing, what the new atheists are up to. Similarly, you sometimes hear believers, mostly amongst themselves, talking about, well, we can't disbelieve in God because then anything's allowed. I think someone said that, right? Maybe somebody in the comment section can tell us who said that, but because it's escaping me at the moment. Something like, if God isn't real, then nothing is forbidden or something. Anyway, now, on the one hand, there's a perfectly legitimate, even if I don't agree with it, there's a perfectly legitimate line of argument that atheism necessarily leads to sort of moral nihilism or moral skepticism. And I don't agree with that, but that's not sort of beyond the pale or something, okay? But what I want to signal, what I want to sort of single out as being beyond the pale is the idea that if our lives no longer have a moral compass, if we accept a certain proposition, then we cannot entertain that proposition, because that's not even addressing whether the proposition is true or warranted. That's just saying we need to hold it together. So let's not consider, let's not consider things that are heretical because they go against our tradition, and we can't sustain our tradition, and our whole identity is tied up in this tradition, and if we reject it, then who are we? Yeah, see, that's beyond the pale. That's not even addressing the argument. So what we want to do, this may seem obvious, okay, but I think that when the fight starts and the dust gets kicked up, you're going to hear a lot of arguments that actually don't track truth. And what we should all say is, that's beyond the pale. All right, so maybe good consequences will come, maybe bad consequences will come, regardless of who wins the argument. The arguments are not about whether the world needs to be more tolerant of atheism or anything like that, or whether sort of we'll lose our moral compass. We'll lose our direction if we no longer have God at the forefront. These things are not of no concern to us. Don't you agree? I hope so. Okay. Just wanted to record a quick video before I get back to and immerse myself in all the crap I'm immersed in right now. And I'll be back, maybe in early January. Thanks. Be good, everybody.